short reflection on the Dhamma. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammāṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. So nice to see everybody here today. Some of us are friends in real life and also on Facebook now. So kind of commenting and see Shriyani comments there. And so we're also on the internet here. And so it was a nice week this week, still Katina season. And this past week was Katina at the Mississauga Temple. And so Katina is one of the big festivals in the Buddhist year, probably one of the two biggest, the other one being Wesak. This one's mainly focused on merit making. It's kind of, there's this idea in the Buddhist teachings that most of the good things that happen to a person in their life that they want, they come from what's called merit. In other words, there's this underlying inclination in the mind that picks out a possibility from a range of possibilities and makes it a reality. This kind of idea that there's these kind of various potentials in a person's immediate experience that can lead onwards to things. And that even though we may want or not want something, there can be a subconscious inclination towards either things that are good or things that are bad. And so the Buddha was really, he didn't use a lot of words to describe it. He was an extremely skilled teacher. And he would just describe things in a way that made it seem really simple. So he just said is merit. If you build up enough what they call a merit, then whatever you direct your mind towards, your mind inclines that way. And if the conditions are right, then you'll get it. So you kind of see some of these people, they seem to have this good luck, So actually I remember I walk on the path, this underground pass system downtown, which I'm kind of in love with. It's kind of 30 kilometers of heated tunnels, which are just great in the wintertime. And on this pass system, there's this Japanese restaurant. It's called Ninki. And when I was young, I used to play a lot of video games, many of which were made in Japan. And they have this kind of cat. In this one video game, there was all these cats. I think cats have something, somebody might correct me, I don't know. I think they have something to do with like good luck or money. Because there's this cat at the entrance to this restaurant. And I know also in many Chinese restaurants, they have kind of the god of, some Taoist gods of wealth at the entrance to their restaurants. It's kind of idea that maybe these things bring good fortune, bring good luck to the restaurant, bring lots of patrons to the restaurant. And so there's this idea in kind of all cultures of kind of luck, It's kind of fortuitous circumstances coming together in an unexplained way, and things just seem to work out, Or this idea of kind of like bad luck, It's kind of all of a sudden things are going well, and no matter what we seem to do, they go down. Things kind of going poorly. It's kind of unexplained situations come together and make things go poorly. And so in Buddhism, this aspect of luck all comes under what we call kamma. And kamma has this attitude, or this idea, there's this idea behind it of good kamma, things that we can do that are good, and bad kamma, things that we do that are bad, that incline the mind towards unwholesome things, towards things that are bad. We can do things that incline the mind towards wholesome things, things that are good. And so there isn't really this idea of kind of luck. It's kind of just whatever, like a totally random chance. It's always something that we've done in the past and mixed with what we're doing in the present that leads to a result. So, a person, for example, a farmer might have a really excellent field with really good dark soil, possible to plant things in that soil. And this is something that they didn't create. It's there. It's their past. If they want to grow anything in that soil, they have to put forth effort in the present. They have to plant it. They have to water it. Then it's possible for things to grow. And so in the same way, in Buddhism, there's this idea of things coming in from the past and interacting with the way that we do things right now, in the present. So in other words, it's not this idea of like total fatalism, where kamma means whatever we've done in the past, we're going to totally reap the benefits from that, or we're going to totally suffer from that. What we do right now can make the actions that we did in the past accelerate or decelerate. So it's like somebody kind of pushing a stone. Kind of imagine, I remember when I was young, I used to watch these kind of Indiana Jones movies, and there was this one spoof by Weird Al Yankovic, the Indiana Jones movie, and this big, huge stone rolls after him. And it starts rolling after him. It like turns down side streets, and he's running from this thing, this big stone, rolling stone. Anyways, not a magical stone like that, but a normal big rolling stone. If we set it rolling, okay, it rolls. That's the kind of initial action. It gets going. And then there's things that you can do to either speed up that stone's rolling or slow it down. And this is the way that our actions in the present work. So in other words, there's always something we can do, regardless of our situation. And this is why the Buddha teaches that his path is a path of actions. It's a path of effort. That's why he also teaches that he only points the way. It's something we have to do for ourselves. We make this kamma. The interesting thing about this kamma, this merit, is that it has an element to it, of what we might call luck. It's kind of luck, not in the random sense, but in the sense of things coming together in an unexplained way, that we can't necessarily plan for, that we don't necessarily see down the line. So actually, I bumped into a really interesting fellow on the underground path on Friday. And usually I don't usually try to go there on Thursdays, because Fridays all these people like going to nightclubs, kind of going to or coming from nightclubs. But sometimes the way that the week works, just make it down there on Friday. Friday's the day to go. And a couple of Fridays I'd seen this guy, late at night. Usually I go down there after everybody's left, maybe after like 5 or 6, and I'll stay there pretty late, sometimes till like 11 o'clock, and then I'll take the train back. And oftentimes I'd seen this guy, and he was just kind of, I didn't know what he was up to, but he was kind of, he had all these kind of like bags, food and things like that. And I was, he'd be by these restaurants with like all these kind of, those durable bags that you get from the grocery store. And he'd have like a bunch of those stacked up. And I didn't know what he was about, but, as you're walking around, I tend to wave to people and say hello. And so, he seemed like a friendly enough guy, so I'd wave to him. Didn't know what was up. And then last week, I waved to him and he kind of walked over and we started talking. And so he had an interesting story, and it turned out that he was from, I guess, a really wealthy family. And he went to school in the States for music and fine arts and these kind of things. And one day he found himself kind of very, very depressed, And so he walked into a Christian bookstore and met the people there. And he didn't know what he was looking for, but as he was leaving the bookstore, the lady came out and she's like, I'd like to invite you to my house for Christmas. And he said he went there and he felt like so much fellowship, and I think he had a Jewish background, but he converted to Christianity. And from there he started, he was at his church one day, and he started, there were a bunch of kids, and he went to buy a pie or something for himself, and he thought, maybe these kids need a pie. And so he asked the guy who was making pies, if you have any left over at the end of the day, can I take a pie from you? And he said, okay. And so he took this pie from this guy and brought it to the kids, and was like, oh, it's a delicious pie. And from there, he just kept going with that. And he just kept going to all these various stores and collecting leftover food items. So that's what he was up to when I saw him. He had like tons of food. This was by these kind of very expensive like restaurants and grocery stores down there. Probably a sandwich is like $7. Something you can make for like $1. It's like $7.50 down there. But all the people seemed to know him and they liked him. I didn't know if he was telling me the truth. But anyways, he had bag after bag after bag. And he started telling me kind of all these stories, about his experiences doing this. So he was going to, that night, every Friday night now, he goes and collects his food and stays up till 3 a.m. distributing food to various homeless people. And so he was telling me all these interesting stories, like, I had this time, I wanted to start this charity, and I didn't know where I would get the money from. I needed $300, and he doesn't do this for any pay. He's kind of this very dedicated person to these kind of acts. And he said he needed this money, and as he was walking down the street, he saw this envelope. And he opened the envelope, and there was $260 in the envelope. And he said, okay, well, that's okay, good. Then there's another 60. Might need. I'll find it somewhere. And he said he was walking later. A few days later, he found another envelope or something with $60 in it. So he got exactly the $300 he needed. And so we got to talking. We didn't talk much about this, but actually, as a monk, there's a lot of stories about this as monks, because as monks, you don't handle money, and you basically rely on people for food. And so he was always saying these things like, if you do good things, the universe takes care of you. You have to have this kind of faith that the universe will take care of you. Things will come together and work out if you just keep trying. And I kind of agree with him, And so oftentimes as a monk, especially in Thailand, it's kind of proverbial, actually. There was one monk who wanted to practice a lot of meditation just a couple of years ago. And he lives in the States, where people don't know anything about alms round. And these days, to train as a monk, you have to stay in a monastery. You have to do that for 5 years. And then because it's not Thailand or anything else, it's hard to just leave and rely on alms food. So actually, I go on alms round every day, but the number of times I've been spontaneously offered alms is very few. You couldn't survive on that in Canada. But this monk, he just wanted to practice meditation. At a monastery, there's often many, many duties. In the time of the Buddha, the monks would wander with their bowl and stay in the forest and go out to the town, get food, and return to the forest to meditate. And so one day, as the rains retreat was approaching, this is this time where monks have to stay put for 3 months, he said to the abbot, he's like, okay, think I've had enough. And the abbot was like, what do you mean? He's like, think I'll be heading out now. And the abbot's like, where are you going to go? You're in Massachusetts. you got nowhere you can go, and this is Vasa is in summer in Canada. He's like, people, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to walk. I was going to walk out of the monastery. And so it was like a week before what they call the start of Vasa. You have to find a place to stay. It has to be a place with a closed door. There's 2 periods to enter it. So this monk had a month after that. Before, he had to find a spot. He has no money. He's got to find a spot to live. And I still remember this because all of us were just totally amazed. So anyways, there was big news. He quits the monastery. He just gets up and leaves. All he has is his kind of bowl. Just what you see in the Suttas, his bowl and a few possessions. And he starts walking down the street. Anyways, we were all sitting there like, what's going to happen to him? That's a bold move right before Vasa. He just leaves, how's it going to happen? Anyways, he ended up wandering, and there was never a single day that he didn't get food. Not one. So I called him, I sent him a letter, or I sent him an email after that, and I was like, what you did is totally amazing. I can't believe you did that. You're living like they did in the time of the Buddha. It's amazing. And eventually we had a phone call, and I was like, how do you do it? How are you getting food? And he's like, you wouldn't believe me, but I've never gone a single day without having food. And he'd show me these photos of the places where he was. There's just these huge tracts of forest in Massachusetts. And that Vasa, after he left the monastery and started walking, apparently he was just standing for alms, and some people there spontaneously offered him a place to stay for the rains. So he ended up with a place to stay. And he ended up with enough food, and he's still doing it to this day. That was about 4 years ago, something like that. Now, of course, we have to be kind of, circumspect with this. Don't just throw a person's fate to the wind. But there is this other aspect of kamma, this kind of mysterious aspect, where if a person has an intention to do something good, if a person's done a lot of good things, sometimes things come together in a way that we just could never plan for and could never foresee. And this is where this aspect of faith comes in. This kind of faith that if we do good things, if we persevere in wholesome qualities, a way will open up, even if we can't see what it is. It's kind of one of the mysterious aspects of kamma. But the thing about it is, it also requires effort. This kind of farmer, who plants a seed, they don't know if the seed will grow. It requires faith. They're watering it. They're not sure if it's going to sprout. But when it sprouts, they see. Their kind of faith or their conviction in this was confirmed. And so knowing these things about kamma, knowing that somebody who does good things, this is one of the Buddha's teachings, that somebody who does good things come back to them. Somebody with an intention to move their life in a good direction, although it seems impossible, although it seems it could never happen, so long as that person perseveres, it's possible that a way will open up for them, that things will come together in ways that are mysterious, that couldn't be planned for. And so all this is tricky for Westerners, right? People who've grown up in Canada, grown up in the States, grown up with a background of science, right? Especially Newtonian science teaches that the world is very mechanical. Have to do X and Y will happen. But now they have this new science of quantum physics, all kinds of crazy stuff happens. And so this is a bit more like the laws of kamma. But the thing about this faith is it's something that's sustaining. Oftentimes the most difficult periods in a person's life are precisely periods that you can't rationally see any end to. Can't rationally see any escape from. So this is where this quality of saddha, this quality of faith in wholesomeness, in doing good, that a person who does good will come back to them, that's something that sustains, that can get people through the dark periods. And it's something that gets confirmed because when we practice this ourselves, when we actually set out to do something good, when we actually practice giving, we practice meditation on a regular basis, we practice keeping our mind refrained, the first time these kind of things come together in a spontaneous way for us, then we get that knowledge ourselves. It doesn't just become something that's in the books, we've seen it, Seen the power of wholesome actions, seen the possibility that comes from doing good. Because there's always a way out. So long as we're alive, whatever difficulty we face that comes from bad actions, comes from a difficulty in the mind, there's an escape from that difficulty. There's a solution to it. And actually the ambition for this goes even further because the Buddha's teaching is that there's a solution to the ending of suffering. So if there's a solution to the ending of suffering, there's a solution to all the minor kinds of suffering that come before that. But one of the things that sustains us through these things, one of the things that gets us through all the difficult periods, gets us to periods of happiness, is having this faith. That even though things are difficult, so long as I do good, goodness will come back to me, and happiness will be the result. Okay? So I think I'll leave that for your reflection.